The afternoon sun scorched the cracked sidewalks of Dorchester, Massachusetts, a mixed neighborhood where gentrification and old hatred clashed behind closed doors. Rhiannon Calloway, a 34-year-old black mother, adjusted her son's hoodie as they stepped off the number 22 bus. Her little boy, Zion, barely 6, clung to a beat-up toy robot named Baxter and hummed a jingle from his favorite cartoon. He had no idea how the day would unravel. Rhiannon wasn't just any woman. She had grace in her posture, pain behind her smile, and strength carved into her stride. She had $47.25 in her purse and a mission to make that stretch into a week's worth of groceries. The store on the corner, Monty's Market, was one of the few non-chain groceries left in the area. A place that smelled like old wood, pickled eggs, and ammonia. As she walked through the automatic doors with Zion skipping beside her, the sensors chirped with a delayed beep. No one noticed. Not yet. "Remember what we're getting, baby?" she asked Zion, guiding the cart toward the produce section. "Milk, eggs, strawberries, and cereal with the Dino on it." Rhiannon grinned. Close enough. For nearly 30 minutes, the two navigated the narrow aisles, carefully choosing between brands, checking prices, and sharing quiet jokes. She picked up a box of cereal, a gallon of milk, apples, bread, and even managed to grab a frozen lasagna, a rare treat. They waited in line behind a white man buying 4 cases of beer. The cashier, a lanky teenager with a lazy eye and earbuds in, barely made eye contact with her as he scanned her items. Rhiannon paid with her debit card. The receipt printed. She took the bagged items and stacked the cereal box on top. Zion carried the strawberries in his little arms, proudly acting like her assistant. Together, they headed toward the exit. Then. A voice. A shriek. "You thief! You dirty little thief! Give me that box!" Rhiannon barely turned before a wrinkled white hand grabbed at her cart. The cereal box went flying. An elderly white woman with powdered curls and a vicious expression stormed toward her, her cane dragging behind her like a weapon. Her voice cracked like thunder across the store. "I saw you take it. I saw you. You didn't pay for that cereal," she screamed. Rhiannon froze, stunned. "Excuse me? You heard me. You people always stealing, I saw you stuff that in your bag." The woman pointed a trembling, accusatory finger at her. Rhiannon's pulse spiked. Zion stepped behind her, clutching her leg. Other shoppers stopped mid-aisle. The cashier paused his scanning. The room became a vacuum of tension. "Ma'am, I paid for everything," Rhiannon said, trying to steady her voice. She pulled out the crumpled receipt and held it up. "Here. Look." But the old woman didn't want proof. She wanted power. "You think you can fool us? You people are all the same. You think you can walk in here and take what you want because the world owes you something?" That was it. Something inside Rhiannon snapped. Her hands didn't shake anymore. Her eyes sharpened. "I'm warning you," Rhiannon said, her voice steel now. "Back away from me and my son." Instead, the old woman lunged again, grabbing for the box now on the floor. And that's when it happened. Rhiannon stepped between them and shoved the woman's hand away, just enough to make her stumble. The old woman lost her balance and fell backward into the stacked canned goods display. She didn't hit her head, but she screamed like she did. "Assault! She attacked me! Call the police!" Zion was crying now, and Rhiannon scooped him up into her arms. "Baby, it's okay. I'm here. You're okay." The cashier dialed his phone. Other customers whispered. One woman nodded along with the elderly accuser. A man recorded the scene on his phone. Rhiannon gathered the spilled cereal box and tried to leave, but the store manager, a rotund man with thick glasses named Curtis, stepped in front of the door. "Ma'am," he said with forced calm, "I need you to stay until the police arrive." Why? She demanded. Standard procedure. Rhiannon looked at her crying child. At the phone still recording her. At the elderly woman on the floor, clutching her wrist with dramatic flair. Her heart sank. She knew what came next. And sure enough, within 15 minutes, the police sirens sang through the parking lot. 2 police cruisers screeched into the Monty's Market parking lot like metal beasts summoned to a blood ritual. Their flashing lights painted the windows in alternating red and blue, as if the store had suddenly turned into a stage for a tragedy Rhiannon never auditioned for. She stood near the exit, holding Zion tightly, feeling the tremors in his little body vibrate through her chest. The boy clung to her neck, silently sobbing into her shoulder. "Stay strong, baby," she whispered. "Mama's right here." The glass doors whooshed open as 2 officers stepped in, both white, both male, one stocky with buzz-cut blonde hair, the other tall and clean-shaven with dark sunglasses still on indoors. Their name tags read, Officer Trent Callister and Officer Devlin Hames. "Where is she?" Callister barked, before anyone even pointed. The elderly woman was now seated in a foldable chair someone had brought her. Her name was Gladys Mayhew, 78 years old, a lifelong Dorchester resident, and as it would turn out, a known complainer in the neighborhood Facebook group. "There she is!" Gladys shrieked, pointing with her crooked cane. "That thing attacked me. She tried to rob the store." "I have my receipt," Rhiannon said firmly. "I paid for everything." She lunged at me. I was defending myself and my son. "Don't move," Officer Hames said sharply. "I'm holding a child," she snapped. "I'm not moving anywhere unless it's away from that racist old." "Ma'am, we're going to need you to put the child down and step outside." "She didn't do anything," Zion wailed. "She just bought cereal and the lady was mean." "Please," Rhiannon begged, trying to keep her voice from cracking. "My son is 6. He's terrified." Callister's hand went to his holster. Hames stepped forward. "Ma'am," Hames said, more coldly this time, "if you do not comply, we will escalate." The store fell into eerie silence except for the beep of an unattended register. Phones were still recording. Rhiannon looked around and saw not compassion, but passive spectatorship, the same blank stares as if they were watching reality TV. A woman behind the freezer aisle quietly muttered, "This is what happens when they get aggressive." The word stabbed her in the chest. Rhiannon slowly bent down, placed Zion on the floor, and kissed his forehead. "You stay right here. Don't move. Mama. I'll be okay, baby. I promise." She straightened up and turned toward the officers, hands raised. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You were accused of assaulting a senior citizen," Callister replied. "Turn around." "Unreal," she muttered. He moved to cuff her. As the cold steel clamped down on her wrists, Zion let out a scream so piercing, so raw, the entire store seemed to vibrate with its grief. "Don't take my mommy." The box of cereal fell from his hands and landed with a thud. Gladys smiled quietly to herself. They put Rhiannon in the back of the cruiser, her head bumping the hard plastic divider as the doors slammed shut. Zion remained with the store manager until Rhiannon's sister could come pick him up. She hadn't even been allowed to call her yet, she had to beg Callister to call someone on her behalf. The drive to the precinct was silent. Rhiannon stared out the window, her thoughts tumbling like clothes in a dryer. Rage. Shame. Fear. Rage again. At the station, she was booked. Mugshot taken. Fingerprints pressed into cold ink. Her dignity ground down with every snap of latex gloves and every sideways glance from officers in the bullpen. They put her in holding. A concrete bench. No clock. No voice to explain how long. Just fluorescent lights and a stale chemical smell. Finally, a voice. "Miss Calloway." She looked up. A woman this time. Black, mid-40s, sharp suit, sharper eyes. Her name was Detective Lorna Spears, and she had that unmistakable air of someone who had climbed through concrete ceilings just to breathe. Yeah. I pulled the security footage. And I know you didn't steal anything. Thank God. But the woman's accusing you of pushing her into a display. That's still potential assault. She grabbed me. She came at me and my kid. I saw. But it gets complicated when the other person is 78 and has a cane. So you're telling me I might go to jail because I didn't let her attack me? I'm telling you the system doesn't always protect the ones it should. Silence. Then Rhiannon asked the question that had been burning her tongue. Would it be different if I was white? Detective Spears didn't answer. She didn't have to. 3 hours later, Rhiannon was released. No formal charges yet, pending investigation, they said. But her name was already in the system, already logged. Already marked. Her sister, Tamika, stood outside the precinct with Zion, whose face lit up when he saw his mother. He ran. She knelt. And their embrace was long enough to make time forget itself. I missed you, Mama. I missed you more, baby. Tamika walked over, seething. We're suing. We're going viral. We're going all the way to CNN if we have to. But Rhiannon's eyes weren't angry just yet. They were tired. They don't need CNN, she said. They need a conscience. By the time Rhiannon got home that night, the video had already gone viral. Not just one video, 3, each from a different angle. The clip of her holding Zion and trying to explain herself, the part where Gladys screamed, "She's robbing the store," and finally, the moment she was handcuffed with Zion crying at her side. Twitter exploded. TikTok did what TikTok does, clipped, remixed, and flooded every FYP with hashtags. Hashtag justice for Rhiannon. Hashtag shopping while black. Hashtag protect black mothers. But not all the comments were supportive. For every, "This is disgusting," came another, "We don't see what happened before the video," or worse. She probably was stealing. They just don't show it. If she didn't want to be arrested, maybe she shouldn't have acted like an animal. Where's the footage of her attacking that poor old woman? The hate came in waves, mechanical and relentless, like locusts swarming. Rhiannon sat on the couch, Zion asleep beside her, and stared at her phone in disbelief. Her inbox was a war zone. Messages from strangers, some offering support, others accusing her of faking the whole thing for clout. She opened Facebook to check on her neighborhood group, Dorchester Moms United. Big mistake. There, under a post titled, "Let's discuss the grocery store incident before jumping to conclusions," the comments were a toxic landfill. I know Gladys. She would never lie. I don't care what the video shows, I know what I felt, that woman looked threatening. This is why I don't shop at Monty's anymore. They cater to the wrong crowd. Rhiannon closed the app before she could throw her phone across the room. The next morning, the doorbell rang at 7:23 a.m. Tamika opened it first, she had spent the night. A heavy-set white man in khakis and a tight blazer stood holding a microphone. Behind him, a thin woman balanced a camera on her shoulder. Hi. I'm Jordan from WCVB Channel 5. We'd love a quick statement from Ms. Calloway regarding the incident. Tamika slammed the door without a word. Rhiannon emerged from the kitchen with a towel over her shoulder and a blank stare on her face. That's the third one this morning, Tamika said. You want me to write no comment on the mailbox? Let M film the sidewalk. Maybe they'll trip on the curb and sue the city instead. But Rhiannon wasn't laughing. Her job at Holloway Elementary, a fourth-grade teacher, had already left her a voicemail, "Given the recent developments, we're placing you on paid leave until further notice." Further notice, that's corporate speak for "we're waiting to see if your blackness becomes too controversial to keep around." Her lawyer, Miles Gardner, a sharp, fast-talking brother from Roxbury, called at 9 a.m. "You're trending. That's both good and bad. Is it going to help or hurt? Depends. You ready to speak publicly?" "I don't want to be a hashtag, Miles. I just wanted some cereal." There was a pause on the line. "Well, Rhiannon, the world doesn't care what you wanted. But if it's going to turn you into a symbol, we damn well better control the story." Later that day, they held a small press conference in front of her lawyer's office. Cameras. Microphones. Protesters holding signs. "Being black isn't probable cause. Protect our mothers." Gladys lied, Rhiannon cried. Rhiannon stood at the podium in a navy coat, hair pulled back, eyes fierce. "I've never stolen a thing in my life. I'm a mother. A teacher. I love this community. But what happened to me at Monty's Market wasn't just about me. It was about the silent rules in this country that say some people get the benefit of the doubt, and others get handcuffed in front of their children." The crowd clapped. Reporters scribbled. But here's the part one need you to hear: this wasn't new. This wasn't rare. This wasn't an accident. It was Tuesday. Silence fell, heavy and real. She continued, "We all know someone this happened to. A brother profiled in a store. A sister pulled over for a broken taillight. A cousin who fit the description. But we are not shadows. We are not suspects by default. And we are done asking for humanity." The video of her speech was shared by celebrities. Ava DuVernay reposted it. Sean King shared it with a paragraph of rage. Even Michelle Obama tweeted a heart emoji with the caption, "We see you, Rhiannon." But Gladys Mayhew wasn't done. A day later, she appeared on Conservative Crossfire, a right-wing morning show hosted by Tucker Lakewood. She sat on a gold-trimmed armchair, clutching tissues like an Oscar nominee, and told her version. "She yelled at me. She pushed me. I feared for my life. And now the liberal media is making me the villain. Cue the tears. I'm 78 years old. I served on the PTA. I marched for civil rights. And now I'm getting death threats." The show's host nodded solemnly. Cancel culture strikes again. Meanwhile, Zion had stopped speaking at school. When asked what was wrong, he just drew pictures, stick figures in handcuffs, police cars with red and blue lights, his mother with a frown. Rhiannon looked at his drawings in silence one evening. "This is what he remembers," she whispered to Tamika. "Not birthdays. Not cartoons. Not pancakes. He remembers me getting taken away like a criminal." Tamika put her hand on her shoulder. "Then let's make sure what he remembers next is how his mama fought back." Miles Gardner's office was no longer just an office, it was a battlefield headquarters. Stacks of depositions, copies of security footage, timelines, witness lists, police reports, all pinned across whiteboards, surrounded by yellow sticky notes like scars of war. Rhiannon sat in the middle of it all, quiet but alert, eyes scanning a printed statement for the 100th time. "You sure you want to do this?" Miles asked, tapping a pen on the table. "I'm not doing it for me anymore." Zion was with her mother in Brockton that weekend. She needed time to prepare, not just for the lawsuit against Gladys Mayhew for defamation and false reporting, but for the real fight, reclaiming her name. Miles stood up and turned the whiteboard. "Let's walk through it again. You entered Monty's at 3:43 p.m. Spent 12 minutes shopping. Security footage shows you paying, clearly, at 3:55 p.m. Gladys doesn't appear on camera until 3:58, 3 minutes after you walked out." He flipped a photo, a still from the parking lot camera. Gladys, clutching her purse, eyes narrowed, storming toward the exit. "And here," he pointed, "is the exact moment she grabs your cart. This image alone destroys the shoplifting claim." "Yet they still arrested me," Rhiannon murmured. "They didn't arrest you, they arrested their idea of you, Miles replied, his voice tight with fury. And that idea doesn't look like a calm, educated black woman buying groceries with her son. It looks like a threat. And that's what we're gonna make the jury understand. Meanwhile, across town, Gladys sat in her parlor, sipping chamomile tea from a chipped porcelain cup. Her attorney, Vincent Drexler, an old conservative bulldog with deep ties in the state senate, was furious. You went on television, Gladys. Without clearing it with me. I was defending my name. You were inflaming the internet. Now we're facing a defamation countersuit, and the footage is damning. You need to settle. Quietly. Settle, she scoffed. With her. She assaulted me. Do you know the kind of trauma I've endured? You grabbed her cart, screamed thief, and lied to law enforcement. Gladys didn't flinch. I did what I thought was right. And now I'm being punished for it. No, Gladys, Vincent sighed. You're being held accountable. For once. Back in Dorchester, Rhiannon met with a group of black mothers who had reached out after seeing the press conference. They sat in a community center, folding chairs in a circle, a pot of weak coffee on a plastic table in the corner, children playing in the next room. One by one, they shared stories. A woman followed through Target. A cop pulling her over and asking whose baby was in the car. A teacher assuming her son couldn't read. Each story different. Each story the same. When it came to Rhiannon's turn, she simply said, I thought if I followed all the rules, I'd be safe. Silence. Then one mother, her voice soft but steady, said, That's the first rule they don't teach us, the rules don't protect us. They protect them. A week later, the court hearing began. The courtroom was small but packed. Reporters lined the walls. Every seat filled. Zion stayed home, the sight of his mother in front of a judge would be too much. Rhiannon sat beside Miles at the plaintiff's table. Gladys, 2 rows away, looked like a ghost of herself, no makeup, no television smile. Just pale skin and the tremble of someone who had once been adored and now feared a fall from grace. Testimony began. The store manager confirmed the purchase, time-stamped receipt, security footage, customer logs. Then came the cashier, a young Latina woman named Isaura. She didn't steal anything, Isaura said, firmly. She paid in full. I even gave her son a sticker. What happened after that? The judge asked. I heard yelling outside. That white woman, Mrs. Mayhew, she was screaming and grabbing at the cart. We all ran out, thought something horrible was happening. But, it was just a mother. A regular mother. The defense tried to discredit. Are you sure she didn't conceal anything? A small item, perhaps. Isaura blinked. The only thing she was hiding was her disbelief. Then it was Gladys's turn. She shuffled to the stand. Her voice cracked before she even spoke. I was frightened, she said. I saw her leaving quickly. The box looked unfamiliar. I thought she hadn't paid. I reacted from instinct. Did you see her steal anything? No. Did she physically harm you? She hesitated. No. But she looked angry. And that made you call 911 and accuse her of assault? I didn't know what else to do. The courtroom shifted. Uneasy silence. Miles stood. Calm, but cutting. Mrs. Mayhew, you've lived in Dorchester for 40 years. Yes. Seen plenty of mothers with children shopping? Of course. Have you ever stopped any of them before? No. Why this one? Gladys looked down. I don't know. No further questions. As court adjourned for the day, the media swarmed. But something had changed. The tide had shifted. No longer just a scandal. Now, a reckoning. Inside her apartment, Rhiannon sat beside Zion as he drew with crayons. He held up a picture. It showed her, not in handcuffs, but at the podium. "What's this, baby?" "You," he said. "When you were brave." Rhiannon's eyes welled. This wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about legacy. The courthouse was a pressure cooker. Reporters camped outside in vans with satellite dishes, protesters lined the sidewalks, some holding signs of solidarity, others condemning the so-called victim. America had taken sides. Social media was a wildfire of hashtags. Hashtag Justice for Rhiannon. Hashtag I Stand with Gladys. Hashtag Dorchester Divided. Inside the courtroom, the final arguments were underway. Miles Gardner's tone was controlled, but every word struck like a hammer. "This isn't just about Rhiannon Aves," he told the jury. "It's about what happens when bias becomes behavior. When fear becomes action. And when assumptions become accusations that ruin lives." He turned to the jury and let the silence stretch. She paid. She followed the law. She protected her child. And yet, she was treated as a criminal. Why? He looked directly at the foreman, then at Gladys. Because she was black. Let's stop dancing around it. Gasps fluttered. Even the judge, a composed woman named Thelma Yarborough, adjusted in her seat. Miles continued. She didn't just suffer a false accusation, she was dragged into a patrol car, held in a cell, and branded a thief on live television. Her son watched it all. That trauma will echo through his life too. This wasn't just defamation. This was character assassination fueled by racial paranoia. He stepped back. You can't undo what happened. But you can declare it unacceptable. Then came Vincent Drexler, Gladys's attorney. Older, colder. Less fire, more manipulation. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, hands folded, "what we have here is not racism, but a misunderstanding, an unfortunate one, yes, but not malicious. My client, a 71-year-old widow, saw something she didn't understand and reacted." He paused. "She did what she thought was right. You can't penalize someone for fear." He turned slowly, as if savoring the moment. Was she mistaken? Possibly. But does that mistake deserve public humiliation? Bankruptcy? Social ruin? He gestured toward Gladys, who sniffled dramatically. "This isn't justice. This is vengeance." The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Rhiannon waited in the hallway with Miles, arms crossed, heart in her throat. She barely moved, barely breathed. Inside the deliberation room, 12 strangers wrestled with the weight of history. Some saw Gladys as a relic of a more innocent era. Others saw Rhiannon as the image of dignity dragged through mud. Outside, Zion sat on a bench with Miles's assistant, playing with a toy dinosaur, unaware that his mother's entire future hung in the balance. When the jury finally returned, the entire courtroom stiffened. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" asked Judge Yarborough. The foreman stood. A bald man with deep creases on his forehead. "We have, Your Honor. In the matter of Aves versus Mayhew, on the count of defamation, how do you find?" "We find in favor of the plaintiff. Rhiannon Aves." A murmur rolled through the courtroom. "On the count of malicious prosecution?" "We find in favor of the plaintiff." "Damages?" $975,000 in compensatory damages, and $2.5 million in punitive damages. Gladys collapsed into her chair, her mouth open but soundless. Rhiannon didn't cry. She didn't cheer. She simply bowed her head. As if a mountain had been lifted, but its shadow still lingered. The aftermath. Rhiannon stepped out into the flash of cameras and microphones. Miles shielded her as questions flew like bullets. "Do you feel vindicated? Will you press further charges?" What would you say to Gladys if you saw her right now? She looked out across the crowd. Some faces smiled. Some sneered. Some were silent. I'm not here to destroy someone, she said, loud enough for the microphones to catch. I'm here because my son deserves a world where his mother isn't a suspect for buying cereal. Then she turned and walked away. Later that night. In her apartment, Zion was already asleep. Rhiannon sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the ceiling. Miles's text came through, "You did it." The world saw. But she knew the world hadn't changed. Not yet. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a number she didn't recognize. She hesitated. Answered. "Ms. Eves," a man's voice said. "This is Darnell Harrow from the Boston Globe. We'd like to interview you, about your story." She smiled. "Just a little. Only if you promise not to make me sound like a victim." Meanwhile, Gladys sat in her living room, the TV on mute. Her house was dark. Outside, someone had graffitied her fence. "Liar. Bigot. You thought you were the law." She stared blankly. Everything was gone. Donations had dried up. Even her church had quietly distanced itself. And somewhere deep down, for the first time in her life, Gladys Mayhew felt something she had never truly known. Accountability. It had been 3 weeks since the verdict. The buzz had dimmed, though echoes remained, in hashtags, op-eds, and late-night monologues. But for Rhiannon Aves, the noise was just background. What mattered was peace. And peace was hard-earned. Life after court. The settlement gave her room to breathe. She didn't quit her job at the high school, not because she couldn't, but because she wouldn't. "I didn't go through all of that just to disappear," she told the principal when he gently offered her a sabbatical. "Kids still need someone like me in front of that classroom." Zion was thriving. He didn't talk much about the incident, but his drawings told stories of monsters being defeated by superhero moms. He even drew a picture of Officer Patel, labeled "Nice Cop." Still, Rhiannon couldn't walk into a grocery store without side glances or whispers. Some people recognized her and offered hugs. Some turned their carts around and walked the other way. One woman left a note on her windshield. "I'm so sorry. I used to be a Gladys too." Rhiannon kept that note. An invitation. One afternoon, her phone rang again. Another unknown number. "Ms. Eves? This is Dr. Malcolm Penner with the University of Massachusetts. We're hosting a public panel on community policing, bias, and restorative justice. Would you consider being our keynote speaker?" She hesitated. "I'm not a politician. Or a scholar." "You're a survivor," he said. "And that matters." Gladys. Meanwhile, Gladys Mayhew's world had shrunk. Her house, once a beacon of manicured pride, now looked abandoned. The yard was overgrown. Windows shuttered. She refused interviews, ignored calls from lawyers trying to appeal the damages. Even her daughter stopped visiting. Inside, she watched old news clips like a ghost chasing a time machine. In one clip, she saw herself screaming in the store, frame by frame footage of her pulling the cereal box, her finger jabbing into the air like a blade. She had once insisted that wasn't her. That it was stress. Fear. Confusion. But now, watching her face contorted in anger, she saw it. It was her. All of it. The panel. The auditorium was full. Students. Teachers. Parents. Police officers. Miles introduced Rhiannon with warmth and fire. She didn't ask to be a symbol. But when history knocked, she didn't hide. She stepped up to the podium, nerves buzzing in her fingertips. "I'm not here to make people comfortable," she said. "I'm here because what happened to me, what happened to my son, was never about one woman in a grocery store. It was about a system. A reflex. A wound we keep pretending isn't there. She paused. Her voice didn't shake. My name is Rhiannon Aves. I'm a mother. A teacher. A survivor. And I will not apologize for existing where someone didn't expect me to be. Thunderous applause. One row back, Officer Patel sat in uniform, nodding slowly. A letter. Weeks later, a letter arrived. Handwritten. Sloppy cursive. Ms. Eves. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't forgive myself. But I wanted you to know. I see it now. Not just what I did. But what I refused to see for so long. Your son deserved better. So did you. I'm sorry. Gladys Mayhew. Rhiannon stared at the page for a long time. Then folded it, placed it in the same envelope as the windshield note, and tucked it away. She didn't need revenge. She didn't need a camera. She needed space. And for the first time, she had it. Rhiannon and Zion walked hand in hand into a new grocery store on the other side of town. As they passed aisle 9, Zion looked up. Mom, you think they sell dragon cereal here? She smiled. Only one way to find out. She didn't look around to see who was watching. This time, the aisle was hers.